Hi, this is Professor Lucien, and I'm going to provide a tour of the OSHA website for my students, but I've also had some people ask me for some assistance, and so I'm creating this video. As you can see on the screen right here, I've got the home page of the OSHA website at www.osha.gov. I'll try to zoom this in. It won't let me do it. Maybe if I click on the screen, I can do it. That's a little bit better. So I want to point out some things on the front page and then take you to some different areas. So we've got the tabs here, and that's where I'm going to spend most of the time for the video. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. Let's take a look at the 5 headlines that OSHA has. I'm going to start at the beginning. First one is record keeping, because there's been a record keeping change as of January 2016, and that I have a different webinar on that. Next is, it looks like this coming week there's a Safe and Sound Week. You can read about that if you're interested. They're talking about emergency preparedness and response, which is good because we're getting into the tornado season, especially in the Midwest. This time every year they do a special promotion on summer jobs for young people. They get hurt a lot over the summer. Then finally, how to report a fatality or severe injury. Because again, with the changing in the record keeping and reporting, if you have a fatality in your workplace, you're supposed to contact OSHA within 8 hours. If you have a person who is hospitalized, which is admitted to a hospital for a stay, that's just one. Or there's an amputation, or a person loses an eye, you have to contact OSHA within 24 hours. How do you do that? Contact OSHA. You can call this 800 number. You can find your local area office by clicking on here and a map comes up. I believe there's also a report of severity. Yeah, okay, so there's also an online version. I thought there was. You can search and connect. So let's back out of here. So that's how you contact OSHA. This is how you file a complaint if you're a worker. Report the death. They got it here too. One thing I'll point out is OSHA website, they've got a lot of different ways to get to the endpoint. There isn't always just one way. They always have multiple ways, which I think is good. To get whistleblower information, again, this was beefed up in the changes in the record keeping. Requests a free consultation. So that's, instead of OSHA just showing up to do a compliance inspection, you can request a consultation. If you want to find your local area office or offices in the area, you can click here. They've got a frequently asked questions section. It's interesting because I think that the topics they chose here came from 2 sources. One is the most cited standards, and the other is the most frequently searched items on their website. And so there's some good stuff here if you're interested. Back out of here. In the center here, they have news, which I think somewhat reflects things they have up above there. They have a Twitter account and they've got a blog. Over on the right, it looks like they're streaming closed cases for workplace fatalities. We've got it looks like a link to a YouTube video on how to file a complaint for workers. And then this high penalty enforcement cases by state. And we'll come back to that later. But it seems that this year, I don't know if it's been shut down or not, but companies of a certain size are supposed to start submitting their 300 log information, or I think it's the 301 this year. Then next year it's 300 and 301 for certain size companies or certain high hazard industries. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't think that's been delayed yet, but I don't know if there's information. But that's a completely different subject. Under OSHA, we can get information about OSHA. So if you're my student, yeah, you should probably go into here and you can find all kinds of information. We've got a link to the OSHA Act. We've got history on OSHA. We've got the organizational chart, which at this point in time, it's the beginning of June of 2017. The assistant secretary and their backups have not been assigned yet. So we do not have an assistant secretary of OSHA right now. Does not mean you can just break the laws, though, people. It's just at this point in time we don't have someone in those lead positions. And then you can get information again about the history. Former secretaries. It's just a lot of great information. One thing I'd like to do right now is just go into regional offices. So they've got this great map, and for my students, this is one of their questions they need to look up. So we're in Wisconsin, and so therefore we're part of Region 5, and the Region 5 office is in Chicago, and there's contact. And then it shows here in asterisk the states that are state programs or state-run programs. There are 28 total. So Minnesota, Michigan, Indiana. Now Illinois, I believe, is state-run just for state employees, but then so they're like a hybrid between a federal and state-run program. And then if we click on Wisconsin, again, this is another question from my students. How many area offices, where are they located? And then we've got a link to the consultation. As you can see, like the Appleton office has a big geological region here that they cover. And I think what it is, they broke this up based on approximate number of businesses. Appleton, Green Bay, Oshkosh has been booming for business, and so they're probably a very busy office. Madison, again, most of it's concentrated in Madison, Janesville. Milwaukee, very concentrated urban area, so it's a smaller area. And then Eau Claire, yeah, they cover the rest of the state. Back out of here. So that's information. So you can look up information about OSHA's history. The William Steiger Act, we can look at that right now, was signed into law by President Nixon right at the end of 1970. I think it was like December 29th or 30th. And then OSHA came into being April 28th, 1971. Significant now because that's when we recognize the Worker Memorial Day. April 28th of every year. So the OSHA Act, I believe it's got 34 sections approximately, yes. And probably the most significant, and I'm going to show you a different document later on which really puts all these sections, because this is written in legalese, puts it more in a practical version. That is the General Duty Clause, which is Section 5A1 under duties. Clearly states, not clearly, each employer shall furnish to each of his or her employees employment and a place of employment free from recognized hazards that are causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm to his or her employees. So that's the General Duty Clause. So you can look up actual general duty citations in which there was not a standard that covered the particular hazard that was identified, and evidence was collected by the compliance officer, and so they cite this general one. So that's what they tend to use for ergonomics, because the ergonomic standard that was put in place right at the end of the Clinton administration was repealed by the George W. Bush administration, I think by March of the following year. Let's go into workers. So workers has worker rights. Good to know. How to file a complaint. Again, another place to do that. More information about the whistleblower. Again, another place. One thing that might be interesting is the pursuant of a OSHA 10-hour or 30-hour card. And here has all kinds of information, where you can get it done, why to have it. Let's look at some program statistics. I believe there are 3 tabs here. So it looks like fiscal year 16 was the highest on record for the number of people who were trained. Here's an interesting breakdown of the type of cards that were awarded. So construction 10-hour, it takes over half. It's almost 60%. General industry 10-hour wraps that up. So that gets up to 78%. So almost 4/5. And then construction 30-hour, generally in the maritime and disaster. So those are the cards. And so if you're interested in that, the 10 tends to be for a worker, and the 30 tends to be for a supervisor. And I know of safety professionals who have gone and gotten the train the trainer certification, so they can do it within their workplace or as a consultant. And then they've got a little bit more information. There's obviously more references there for you. Here's for employers. So employer help, consultation services, small business resources, all kinds of great information for an employer. Information on the record keeping changes, how to report when you have a fatality or severe injury. Safety health program recommendations, which is great. And then the poster. This is required. So whenever a compliance officer comes to your work site, they will look for this. In my time back in the early 90s when I was a compliance officer in Minnesota, we called this the $1,000 poster or the $1,000 poster. And because if we didn't see it, that's what we could cite them by it, but I usually kept extra copies with me. A lot of companies, what they do is they'll receive a laminated poster from their work comp carrier. They will have on one side this poster, and then on the other side the work comp information. So if you're in a workplace and you haven't seen this, take a look. It's usually in the break room or on the bulletin board designated for safety and health. Under regulations, you can actually look through the regulations. I'll show you that in a second. We get standard interpretation. This is something that I go to when people ask me really interesting or specific or unique questions about how to apply a specific standard to their situation. And likely there's someone who has come into that situation before, and so they contact OSHA, and then OSHA writes back. So if you need a little bit more specific information, you go search within the standard interpretations, and I think that's a good thing. There's a whole library list of stuff there. Training requirements by standard. There's a big document that you can get. I think it's like over 200 pages or something. Regulatory agenda, and then open for comment. Under the current administration, what we've heard, we don't know for sure, is that there may be some repealing of some standards, and there will likely be very minimal regulatory development. That's just what we've heard so far, but we don't know for sure. We don't even have an Assistant Secretary of OSHA. Under the laws and regulations, scroll down here a little bit, you can look at it from general industry, construction, maritime, agricultural, record keeping, state plans, or all. And then, of course, they bring up our general industry first. You can look at them. If we look at all, sorry about that, we'll just kind of scroll down a little bit. So we've got the state plan information on 1902, 1903, the inspection type information, 1904, the record keeping and reporting requirements. And then next time we're really concerned is 1910, general industry. Now there are some, maritime and shipyard and all kinds of stuff, agriculture, and then 1926 is the construction. So for my students, they're going to spend time, majority of the time for my beginner classes, on the general industry. And it's cool because it's set up by subpart. So 29 CFR 1910 subpart A, and then you got the subpart information B, C, D is brand new, which I like because there's pictures, and then all the way down. And within those subparts, you just have to read to find out which paragraph and item and subitem and all that kind of stuff. So good stuff with the regulations. Students need to learn to do that. Everybody does. I should point out at this point that as I'm showing the OSHA website, this is really meant to be baseline, very basic entry-level stuff. We really want to build above this in order to really protect our employees and our business interests and the public. So this is just meant to be an initial what's expected as a base or what's expected as a minimum. I'll just put that out there. For enforcement, there's enforcement programs. Let's look at the national and local emphasis. The reason why I point this out to my students, they need to know what these are. You can see what there's like, I don't know, like 10 of them or something. That one type of inspection that compliance does is planned programmed, which are the wall-to-walls. Planned programs tend to focus on industries or North American industrial classification system companies, that have these things. So there's going to be more of an emphasis, more wall-to-wall inspections of companies that have one or several of these national emphasis program items. Okay. Let's look at the locals because that's something else my students are supposed to look up, just trying to help them. And they're broken down by region. Wisconsin's in region 5, if I can read Roman numerals. And the question I ask my students is which one tends to be more guided towards Wisconsin, and it's the dairy farm one, LEP 009, because we're the dairy state. We're also the beer state. Topics, so they got them by sector, special initiatives, more help from OSHA. If you're just beginning out, if you're just starting to use the OSHA website, you want more information on particular standard, I think it's good to start with the safety and health topic pages or by sector, whatever it might be, because they have really great information pages. I guess they call them safety and health topic pages. Some are e-tools. And they'll give you direct links to the standards that apply, but they give you a little bit more information. It's more applied, more practical. And then you can also download PDFs of their publications, which you'll find here. So they've got news releases, what's new, testimony, OSHA, or quick takes, newsletter, which when you first get onto the website, they ask you if you want to join, and then other publications. For data, there's good statistics. Now this particular tab tends to be down quite often. They got the high penalties by state. Again, they've got some shaming efforts. Do good, or else if you get over $40,000 in initial penalties, we're going to list it here so people can find it. Or you can look up information by establishment or inspection, or get links to an exterior website such as the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They also have their fatality reports. And then in their training, there's more information. So they got the 10 and 30 hour cards stuff here, some e-tool stuff, some videos. When I looked at, I didn't find the videos on YouTube like you would for WorkSafe BC or some other groups that post a lot of their safety videos there. But it's still very good stuff and good training information as well. And the Susan Harwood training grants. Unfortunately, initial indications are that's getting cut from the budget this year. That upsets me because based on OSHA's budget, optimistically, it would take 100 years for them to inspect every single workplace, but workplaces are popping up new all the time. And so therefore that is an ever extending endpoint. So, so then the secondary way in which to improve worker safety and health is through training and education. And this particular program, I believe they trained over like 1 million high hazard industries or underserved populations of workers or workers that are higher risk. And now this is unfortunately going away. Now we also have the OSHA training centers, and you can find one close to you. Very, very good, great training at very reasonable prices or sometimes free. And then we get training materials. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So let's look at. So as far as you can look at the data and statistics, but then under the commonly, see, look, we've got the budget here. Now they're requesting more, but that's actually going primarily, the most increase is going towards statistics, which they're still anticipating that the new reporting requirements where employers are going to have to submit their 301s this year and then next year 300 A's this year, and then 301s, 300s next year. I think they're anticipating that. But under the current administration, we have no idea what's going to happen. It may be cut, and early indications are, unfortunately, the Susan Harwood grant is going to be cut, and that's very upsetting to me. They have a breakdown of federal to state inspections. Looks like state has more, but I'm going to show you something here in a second when we get to the high violators. Little information about the number of deaths in the workplace. It did pop up previous year. The construction fatal 4, but that does not include highway or vehicular accidents. 10 most frequently cited standards. This is always interesting. It doesn't change a lot from year to year. A lot of people are like, oh, well, that must be the major, violations in companies. Well, but you can think about it another way, in that there are certain citations or certain standards that are easier to document a violation. And when you start talking about inspection numbers, I'm going to speak from just my own opinion here, that there were certain things that were much easier to document as a violation. And I think this list encompasses those, and a little bit more information about OSHA here. Now, you may disagree with what I just said. That's fine. It's a matter of opinion. Let's look at the high penalty, because that was on the front page. I kind of like this. I'm thinking I might do some research later this summer if I have time on this. I'm going to download some of the data. So these are the enforcement cases with initial penalties above $40,000. So I'm in Wisconsin, and a very highly publicized case a couple years ago was the Ashley Furniture, 1.76 million. And if this opens, fantastic. So we get information about the case. The case is still open. I assume there are still some things that need to be abated. So we got the inspection number, still open, which office. Let's see, it was open originally in 2014. It was a referral inspection. No advance notice. You can see there's all kinds of information. We got the different types of initial and current. So it looks like repeats went up, willfuls went down, serious went down, and there are some others. Initial penalty 1.76 million dropped to 1.21 million. And then we can look at what the actual citations were. So they've got them numbered here, so you can click on it and read about it, the type they are, the standards. So look at, we've got 2 general duty clause citations here. 147 I believe is lockout tagout. 151 is I think is eyewash. 212 is like a machine guarding. Same with 13. 219 off the top of my head, that may still be under machine guarding. The 300s are electrical. 147 I believe is lockout tagout again. Let's see here. More machine guarding, more lockout tagout. Yeah, so that was a majority of theirs. And then it also went to formal settlement versus informal settlement. Important for my students. Back out of here. So you saw how many were, this is a federal state, but then if you go to Minnesota, which I think is a good comparison, there are not as many of these cases, and let's see, we've got a 175, and that's about it. So one study that I'd like to do is compare the state-run program to federal-run program and look at these types of cases, because these are the extreme cases, and see what it looks like side by side. And then I may bring in some BLS data, because I can break that down by industry as well. I just think it might be interesting to see if there's any difference there. So that is really, so you can get information about establishments as well. You know, if you're in a particular state, you want to see, well, what's my company's history with OSHA? And you can look up now realize that what your company is called, there are variances to it. You may have to type in different types of variances there, but eventually you probably find it. Or if you're going to go interview, or if you're going to go audit a company, you can find out what their history is. And so this is a great tool. But again, it's kind of hit or miss whether it's going to be functioning or not. When I created a video earlier yesterday, this was not operating. And so I'm glad I got to show it to you. So back to the home page. So that's really everything I wanted to show my students or anybody else would be interested, that there's a lot of great information on this website. It's meant to be sort of the minimum requirement for a safety program or for how you practice safety. But this stuff is updated and they're really trying to help us. And so there's great statistics, there's great resources, and there's interpretations that will help you make your safety program perform better. So thank you for your time.